And we're back. It's your girl, Gaelyn Smith.
And Caleb McDonald.
And this is the No Sleep Till Hollywood podcast. We're not sleeping until we make it in Hollywood. And while we're up, we'll be discussing the state of the industry and our place in it.
And today, let's talk about our progress on sleep. We're going to be discussing how we are trying to bust into Hollywood this week. We're discussing fellowships.
Fellowships. It's an exhausting time, guys. If you know anybody who graduated with a degree in film, June, it's like May, June, July, August, just always seem to be rough months. Like I feel like because the thing is with the fellowships, they never tell you when they're coming and they all pop up and they're all due at the same time. Never. And they all need different stuff. So just pray for your friends in the industry because we tired. We is tired.
We're talking textbook level detail for every application that's due at the same time, given the same direction.
But it's like I wish they all were the same directions. It's like right. Remember how when we were applying to college, you had the Common App and how it like all the basic stuff that was the same it would take, but then each school could have its own question. They need something like that for fellowships because they're really asking. I mean, the personal information obviously stays the same, but then they all ask like similar questions. They're like, tell us about your background and why you want to be in this program. And then they'll ask you some random curveball question. And I just wish there was a Common App for writing fellowships. I mean, I guess that's what Coverfly is technically, because like it holds your information that you can just like attach it to the profiles. But I feel like that still isn't, that's not enough. I need more. But yeah, so we are going to talk a little bit about fellowships. For people who don't know, fellowships are one way of getting into the industry. So oftentimes there are writing fellowships, directing fellowships, producing fellowships, etc. But they are aimed at giving you access to industry execs, but they also give you training and education as well as networking opportunities with other up and coming writer, directors, producers, insert whatever. Fellowships can be as short as a few days. They can be a year long. Sometimes they have the promise of a job after them. Sometimes they don't. But there are a lot of different types of fellowships. Usually they are free to enter. That is the good part. They are usually free to enter. And you usually, if you do get into them, there are a lot of amazing benefits. They are very difficult to get into. Caleb and I are both doing writing fellowships as a way to get in. I last month did an application for Kevin Hart's production company. They have a women in comedy fellowship that I wrote a short film for. To get into that program. So that was a 10-page short film that I had to write specifically using their guidelines. They had certain guidelines based around their budget and what they were able to accommodate. But we had to essentially write a short film and submit that. In addition to essay questions, I also did the Warner Brothers TV writing fellowship where I had to write a spec script. So for people who don't know, a spec script is essentially taking a show that is already on the air, that already exists, that already has characters, and creating an entirely new episode from the format that's already given. I wrote mine on Blackish. So using the characters of Blackish, the relationships from Blackish, I then had to write an entirely new episode and story, in addition to essay questions for that fellowship as well.
They're getting a lot of words out of us.
A lot of words.
That's the biggest key here. I know if I'm being honest, they do kind of blend together, and I'm not going to say which ones I'm most excited for because I'll report back if they hear from me or if I hear from
those weren't the ones I was excited for. Those were just the ones that I submitted last month.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, if I'm not excited for it, they're all kind of a blur, if I'm being honest, because at this point, I'm in it for the goal, not for the, you know what I'm trying to say.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Specific, like as opposed to the specific environment at this point, it's mainly for the goal.
Oh, it's like, so you're saying like to make that, expand that out for everybody else who doesn't doesn't have to be Caleb and Gaelyn.
For instance,
is that you're trying to basically, it's not about like which fellowship as much as getting a fellowship and what it will do for your career.
Exactly. Though Warner Media.
Listen.
That's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think I get that because I think there's a certain point of there are different fellowships that are aimed at specific things. So like if you're applying for Nick, that's obviously going to be more like young people focused television as opposed to maybe a Warner Media, which is going to be whatever properties they have around that you're interested in, you might get an opportunity to work with. And so, yeah, I'm kind of like Caleb, where it's like there are obviously fellowships that I like more than others in terms of some of the benefits. But at this point, I'm just trying to get into one of them so I can get in somebody's room. So it's not like I'm like, there are a couple that I'm like, oh, I want that, I want this. But there's no like writing fellowship that is like super speaking out to me in a specific way at this moment.
Though one fellowship that I will talk about at this moment that you actually did send my way is the Warner Media. Whoa, was it Warner Media or was this one Paramount? The Comedic Voices, Discovery.
Warner Media, yes, the Warner Media one.
I was confused because Discovery is like a channel.
No. So it's the Warner Media Comedy Writing Fellowship, yes. Comedy Voices Fellowship.
And, as someone who would like to think they have a comedic voice, actually, I've been told I have a comedic voice. My
nigga, stop with the fake humble because you have a stand-up. No. You literally do stand-up comedy. So you obviously have a comedic voice. We're not doing this fake humble mess today. Did I tell you
about when I did that? Did I tell you about why I did it in the first place?
With the stand-up?
Yeah.
No, tell us the story, Caleb.
Okay, story time. So, my freshman year, I would talk on my floor. Coincidentally, people would laugh. Okay. But specifically my spring semester, 9 people. And either I was extremely close to them, or they were people I encounter sometimes, like semi-frequently. Like not someone enough that like we talk. So this could be the first DM I've ever gotten from them. And there was this comedian coming to the campus. And it was like, oh, hey, you should sign up. He's looking for a student comedian. And when I got it the first 4 times, I was like, haha, stage fright, but thanks for thinking I'm funny. And then the next 3 times, I was like, well, okay, I think I would be able to do this. I have said I'd be able to do stand-up, but I don't know. But when I got the 8th and 9th time, I was like, okay, at this point, I got to do it just because if not, like, what does that say about me, Like, why am I afraid of this chance? So then I did it and I got it. And because I made the comedian laugh more than anyone else laughed, like, yo, he was loud. I knew. So that's when I was like, okay.
So you got to do the
comedic voice.
But the thing is that was how many years ago for you to still be like, I've been told I had a comedic voice. My nigga, we tell you you're funny every day.
Yes, but other times I'll be dead serious. And people are like, you're so funny. And I'm like, why are you saying this though?
Okay. But
you know what I'm saying?
This is obviously a detour and we'll get back to the main point of the fellowships. But like, Caleb, you are funny, right? And then we're talking about on this, this is actually a great time for this conversation. But we're talking about breaking into Hollywood, right? And we're talking about all of the things that we do. So my question for you is, since you are funny and you have done stand-up before, and you literally have a set that is actually very solid, why are you not doing more stand-up, friend?
Priorities. That's why. I need to actually like find a job. At this very moment, there's been a lot of like practice and like I've had gigs, but like in terms of stand-up, at this very moment.
But I'm not saying like quit your job, go off and like tour the country, but I'm like, you're New York where there are open mics.
Well, okay. So in that case, the reason why there have not been many gigs is because there's an emphasis on written material. So then I could have content to share. Like, yes, I could record stand-up, but like I'm trying to have more digital space taken up by me.
So when you say digital space, what do you mean?
Like content in the digital space as opposed to like live performances.
Right.
Yeah. So like written.
I'm just not okay. I guess my thing is I don't see those two things as mutually exclusive. That's what I'm saying.
I see. I am trying to say that I am trying to show attention to what I currently lack in. So then, because I know that when I jump back into the stand-up space, like I'll be able to do it, relatively speaking, easier. than recorded content.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This answer is not giving what I want it to give. And it's gonna delve deeper. So we'll save this for an offline conversation. But
Okay.
as your friend and as a space on the podcast where we are transparently talking about our journeys to breaking into Hollywood, I think that you could do both things at the same time because they would sharpen each other. And I think that because you and I both are similar in that we have projects that we're like, yeah, I want to do this project. And then it's not at this moment, we're not necessarily working on it. And then it's like, okay, but it's coming. But then in the meantime, like, what are the things that like at this moment we can still do? And I just think that when I think about you, like when I think about my friends who are funny, like you are like my funny friend, like you and our friend Shauna, who's out in LA, like y'all are my funny friends. And I'm just seeing the way that like comedy is like putting Shauna in spaces both to do comedy, but also putting her in spaces to get other jobs in the industry because of how she's beating people. I just think that comedy is that tool for you differently than it is for me, in which case I don't want you to like cut off your pathways for blessings because you're so focused on the other project that isn't.
So then I changed my answer. It's excuses. Excuses is why I haven't been.
That's what I thought it was. But I wasn't going to say it like that on the podcast, friend.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about it more offline. We're going to talk about it more offline. I just felt like since we were having the conversation, it was relevant to the podcast. I'm just saying, God trying to bless people in different rooms. Ain't no sense in cutting off one room of the house because you think that the other room is going to pop first. You know what I'm saying? That's part of why we did the podcast. It's like, you and I are both funny, the podcast, because it's a way to like talk about the industry and have the conversations we already were having, but we're also funny, gives us an opportunity to build more content while we're still working on web series and applying to fellowships and doing all these things. So that's all I have to say about that. I just think that don't put a period where God is still writing a sentence. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I hear what's wisdom.
Pop smoke dance.
I appreciate them. Pop smoke dance. This is the pop smoke dance.
So, you know, the woo when you be doing the thing with you hold the pants and you shake the room.
This looks like you're dancing bachata.
Because you can't see my.
Exactly. This is a podcast. People are listening.
But they can see the video when they watch it because now we have video. Anyway,
go watch.
Go watch us so you can see us be funny as hell from your living rooms. Okay, but back to this fellowship. So we're both, like we said, we're applying to the Warner Media Fellowship. Oh, we got here because the fellowship we're applying for is a comedy writing fellowship, specifically for late night comedy. And I will be honest, my initial intention when I found this application, I sent it to Shauna, who we were just talking about, and I sent it to Caleb, who I was just talking about. And Shauna bullied me into submitting for this as well. So I was bullied, and not that like I needed to be bullied because like whatever, like I'm not doing, but it's like the same way Caleb was like, Caleb was like, oh, I've been told that I was funny. And I'm like, my nigga, we've been telling you you're funny for like 6 years. Like, I feel like people just started telling me I was funny and I just started taking them seriously. So for me, like I sometimes am a little like, comedy, this is scary. I want to get into stand-up comedy, actually. Shauna has been trying to like convince me to do that. And I found a place in DC that I may try and, you know, go out and see how it goes. Because I would be interested in trying it. But I think
I would like to help you with the set. I'm just saying. Oh,
you have ideas?
I have ideas. I could edit, like, as he said, I am funny. I'm not like, you know, saying I'm not funny. It's just a comedic voice. That's what I was saying earlier.
Okay.
But yeah, I would like to help.
All right. So we will talk about this because it's something that I do want to get into. So I think for me, this fellowship has been difficult in terms of finding time. So literally, for you guys who don't know, because we haven't recorded a new episode in a while, a lot of the content you guys are hearing is like episodes we've already recorded. In May, and we'll talk about this because we're going to talk about my trip to LA in a while. I went to LA in April, came back at the beginning of May. I then got COVID and was out for 10 days while I had those two fellowships, so the Kevin Hart and the Warner Television. Both of those were due within 6 days of each other. And they were like right in the middle of me getting COVID is when I was working on them. Like when I was working on them, right, and then I got COVID. So that like took a lot out of me, because then after I've, finished having COVID, I was trying to, hurry up and finish those applications, exhausted. Submit my Kevin Hart one. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Look at God. I am finished with everything I must do. And then I logged into LinkedIn and found like 4 more things that I had to apply for. So basically the life of an emerging television writer is always applying for something. So I was like, I don't know how to do this. And I've been very stressed. I think for me, a lot of my process involves procrastination. I think that's really big for me. And it's easy for me to procrastinate, right? Like I work 2 different jobs. One of them is at a gym. One of them is at a theater, which basically means I do mornings and nights, in the middle of my day is my free time. So it's easy for me to be like, oh, I'm tired. I had work. Like I can easily come up with like a way to procrastinate out. Or in this case, sometimes I've learned to do productive procrastination. I don't know if that's a real thing, but essentially like for this one, you said, it is? It's a real thing?
No, I said tell us.
Oh, okay. So productive procrastination, to me, how I define it in Gaelyn Smith world, is, let's say you are writing a spec script, or in this case, we have to write monologues based on 3 different specific late night hosts. I watch, and I won't say who I'm, selecting at this moment. We'll keep that part under whatever. But I watch the person that I'm writing, but I didn't necessarily watch them every week. I watched the new episode and was very, like I wasn't a hardcore fan of this person. But productive procrastination means, to write in the voice, I have to know the voice. So watching every episode, though it's not writing, is still productive. So I do a lot of that where I'm like, okay, let me watch everything, get comfortable. And I did the other questions. Like I wrote I did all the personal information. I started drafting my personal essays, like whatever I forgot the questions were, but like, why do you want to be a writer? And why do you think you're funny? Whatever the essay questions are, I drafted those and started working on those. So now I really just have to focus my time when writing the segment, the monologue segment. But like for me, I think a lot of it is like that procrastination. Part of it, I think, is fear, particularly in this one where I'm like, I don't know that I'm funny like that. Like this is scary to kind of whatever. But I think part of it is also just like, I was watching this TED talk and basically everyone has like I think it was a procrastination monkey, procrastination monster, something like that. But basically it would let you chill until a certain amount before the deadline. And then it like raises your alarms. You're like, oh my God, I got to do something. And when you're in school, because you always have homework due, or you have a quiz, or you have a test, like there's always this like never ending deadlines. But he was basically saying how as we get older and we're in a less deadline oriented space, it's harder for us to motivate ourselves to do the work. So in the sense of like, as a writer, right, we all know that writers write, actors act, directors direct, right? Like we know we should constantly be working towards our craft. So like, yes, I know that I should be writing another spec script. I know I should be writing another original pilot, but until I have a deadline that prompts it, it sometimes is difficult to sit down and say, I'm going to write this script that no one is paying me to write because I know that I'm going to need it in the future. And sometimes we don't have that procrastination monkey. It makes it difficult to kind of motivate ourselves. And so these deadlines with the fellowships, I've noticed they help me. And even if I don't get into the fellowship, I've now worked a new skill, found out something about myself, and now I'm more motivated to go learn more. So the next time I'm better prepared. But it's like, I don't know, friend, this procrastination is kicking my butt. Like this application is doing what, 9 days?
Right. And no, it really is a struggle writing like whole scripts, knowing that like you're not being paid for it and you have to make sure it's clean cut whole time. You're not guaranteed a thing at all.
And it's just like, gamble. It's just very difficult. But I think I'm really trying to just embrace it, right? Because I think like there's the whole thing of, obviously, I want to be Issa Rae. I want to be Quinta Brunson. I want to be, all of these people who are creating this amazing content and all of these, especially Black content, right? And being helmed by Black women. But there's also the fact that like, when you get to where you want to be in your career, some of the time that you have now, you don't get back. Like, I'm really like enjoying the fact that right now, like I live at home with my dad and I get to see my dad every day. And that's important to me, right? Because I know that when I become Issa and Quinta and I have a show or 2 shows on the air and I'm making movies, I'm doing all these things. When I move to LA, I won't be able to see my dad the way I get to now. When I'm in my career, it's going to be an event to see my family. And so I'm trying to enjoy that process now. But then there's like the monies. I need the monies. I need insurance. I need, a job.
The money specific, goodness gracious. Because, there are jobs. Like, I do have a job in the field, technically. Mm-hmm. It's not the most concrete job. And at the moment, it's very much an intern level. And that is all I will say, because I respect the company that I do work with. And I don't know if they listen.
Yeah, I was like,
but it does take a lot. I did want to go over the comedic voices fellowship, just to give people a taste, an idea of what it does look like. So for this one, and I'll put you guys on the free game, okay?
Free game.
WBD Access. Okay, that Warner Brothers Discovery Access. That's the
you
website.
Definitely want to pay attention to that website.
So for the
Instagram.
Right, because they do have more than just comedic voices. I looked, they have writers, they have showrunners,
they have an acting
directors.
Program. I've submitted for their acting program before. Like, they are Warner Brothers, Warner Media rather, does a really good job of creating pathways for newer talent. They just have a lot of robust programming for it on all sides of the camera. I will shout that out.
So when you do open the application, they're gonna, natural application questions, your name, your email, they need to reach you somehow. But then,
and this is a good moment to pause on that. If your email is some raggedy nickname or some random sexy booty 75, baby girl, baby boy, fix your email, because you're about to be applying for too many things.
Keep it for the spam.
Keep the other one for your spam and your advertisements, but your email needs to be your name, last name, first name, last name, your initials, something professional.
I only apply to these with a professional email, and that actually makes it easier when you have the email separate for only professional things. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I feel like you are a certain age, so this shouldn't be news to you. But if it is, well,
listen, I don't know. Listen. At my job, at my gym, I sometimes see the applications when they come in, and I've seen some emails. And y'all are too old.
I feel like at a gym, I might give a ridiculous email.
No, it's still a job. Like, I just feel like if you're applying for a
job.
Yes.
Okay, never mind. I'm thinking.
Oh, no, not the members.
Get the sweat on. Like,
nah, I mean, the members, their emails be crazy too, but I don't care about that. Right. I'm talking about the people. Like, y'all are trying to be back here with the same job I have, and your email is Doritos are my life 74.
Doritos are my life.
Absolutely not.
Apply to Doritos. That's crazy.
I made that up, by the way. That was nobody's specific email.
Of course, because you're a respectable employee. You wouldn't just give away information like that.
Never. Okay,
so after they ask you about your personal details, they will ask you if you have a comedic presence online. Two things here. Okay. One, don't get discouraged by that, because all that does is show you criteria they're looking for. And let's say you're like, oh, I'm definitely not going to get this one. First of all, they love people who keep applying, because if you keep applying, that tells them that you're someone who's serious about this, and you're going.
Well, if you keep applying
find an opportunity
with new material or with increased stuff, like if you don't have a social presence at all this year, right, and you apply and you're like, I have none, and you apply next year and you still have none, it doesn't matter how funny or how much better your writing has gotten, because they're going to be like, so you didn't learn. Like,
right.
And comedic presence is relative, right? Like, it doesn't have to be like, if you're applying for a screenwriting fellowship, comedic presence doesn't have to be limited to funny content that you can watch, right? Like, so in my case, I listed this podcast as my comedic presence, because y'all be hearing me on here. I be funny sometimes. Then I also listed a poem. I used to do spoken word poetry.
Mhm.
And I have a funny poem that is on the internet still from back in high school. I've sent them a link to that. Like, it doesn't have to be limited to the specific medium you're applying for. They just want to see, like, generally speaking, is this somebody who is funny?
Right. I listed Twitter because I be tweeting jokes.
Right. I'll say, if you're on
personally
Twitter
like
and you're
that. I don't
funny.
care if anyone else does. And also oh yeah, don't be discouraged. Just like build that up for the next year.
Mhm.
And then 2, yeah, also think about it. Like, if you don't have a comedic presence online and this is something you really want to do, like, yes, find opportunities, but that doesn't mean you have to let the opportunities dictate where you are headed. Create the opportunities for yourself. Also, free game. Listen, an agent wants somebody who looks for work themselves too, because
Yeah.
that's easier work on the agent.
And not even easier work on the agent, but like I've been explained to it like this. I have an acting agent, right? As my agent is entitled to 10% of my earning if they book me a role. What that says to me is 90% of this is my job. They only make 10%. So they make 10% of whatever they book me, but it's easier to book me when I've been booked on other things. So 90% of the rest of my job as an actor or writer or whatever is to constantly be working on my craft. So that's taking classes, reading books, reading scripts, watching TV, etc. Right? Then there's seeking out opportunities. So that's creating my own content for me to write and star in. That is, submitting for student short films and submitting for anything that I can submit for. Because like Caleb said, if you are constantly looking for work and looking for opportunities are going to come to you. That's why when I was like, Caleb, like, stand up, you live near New York, what's going on with that? Like, that is like, that's me holding my friend accountable to creating those opportunities. But you don't need somebody to give you a stage in order to be funny, right? So if you're thinking about, okay, this year I don't have the time or the ability to build my portfolio, what are things I can be doing next year for this specific one? Build your comedic online presence. For if you're doing a writing fellowship in general, oh, I don't have a spec script. I don't know how to write a spec script. Let's start with reading find a class, read a book. There are so many books out there about screenwriting. I literally just bought 2 last month that I have to get into when I finish submitting all of my stuff, so I have time to read them. But like, looking for those opportunities to learn, develop, and execute. So that way, when you get into these professional spaces, you have a body of work to show for these fellowships. Or when an agent comes, you have a body of work to show. But the free game there is like, always be working on your craft. Always. Consistently.
Always. I mean, we're working so hard, we're not getting any sleep.
We ain't slept. We ain't slept, y'all.
So after they ask you about that and ask if you're represented, they will ask you to identify yourself. This is in terms of gender identity, race and ethnicity, and disability, the identify.
The same stuff you would do for a job.
The markers, the identify markers.
I would say your core cultural identifiers.
Then they're going to ask you for a little professional bio. After a bio, they're going to ask you some questions related to this fellowship.
But Caleb, go back to the bio, because everybody's not used to, like, people don't get that. Because if you're applying for like jobs, I don't know, and like I didn't have to make a bio to apply for my job at the gym, right? So like a bio is a professional summary of things that you have done that are relevant to who you are, but the career that you're speaking to. So my bio, because I am an actor, writer, producer, my bio does have a mixture of things. Sometimes I edit that down depending on if I'm applying specifically as a writer. I may take some of the stuff about acting out, but not always, because it is relevant to my journey. But it is essentially where you went to school, some professional accomplishments, any awards, and then if you have space at the end, I always think it's fun to include, like, outside of work, you can find so-and-so enjoying X, Y, and Z things that are not specifically related to the professional industry you're applying to, but are relevant. So like the end of my bio definitely has something about watching Beyonce documentaries and annoying my father. Those are 2 things that are If you need to know anything about Gaelyn, she loved Beyonce, she loved her daddy. Like those are two things that like, oh, you walk away from my bio knowing me professionally, and this is a little bit about me personally. But that bio is usually going to be somewhere between 150 to 300 words, depending on your application. So just think about it like that. What are the highlights of my career? What are the highlights of my education? What is 1 to 3 things I can say about me personally that are interesting to other people?
And Galen does bring up another amazing point too. And that point is you want to personalize it as much as possible. You want them to see the person behind the application and not just the criteria that's being met. Because especially in a case like a comedic voice fellowship, you do want to display that at any opportunity. While it is a very formal application, that doesn't mean your words. I mean, don't get me wrong, be professional, but that doesn't mean you have to be the most formal. Show your comedic voice in the answers if you can.
And I think, right, that goes back to even what you said about being professional. Because I just had this conversation. There's a young man at my job who wants to be an actor, and we have some of these conversations, and I've had to tell him about professionalism, right? Being professional is not about talking white. It's not about talking boring, right? But it is about clearly communicating your ideas in a way that if I do not know you, I understand what you are saying, right? So I'm from DC. There is slang that we use in DC that literally does not translate outside of DC. So it does not have a place in my bio. Now, when you read my scripts, I have a script that is currently set in DC. I have another one that I'm working on that is set in DC. It would make no sense to not have that slang there. But talking about in my bio, go ahead, kill, mow, on mother stamp on everything. That's not helpful for anyone to get to know me. Versus in the script where we're in the world of DC, my characters are going to speak that way. So when you think about your professional bio, because your bio should be professional, your essay questions are going to be professional. It doesn't mean that there's a formality to it. Well, there's a formality, but it's not that it's boring. It's just about, can anyone understand this? There might be a specific reference. Okay, if you say louder than a bomb, that's a specific poetry festival. I might not know that, but it's not slang in the same way. So make sure that every part of your application reads easily for people who may not know you.
Yes, indeed. After you are asked about your professional bio, you will be asked essay questions. For this example, the questions are, in what ways do you express your comedic voice? What HBO Max, TBS asking about their other companies that are associated with the conglomerate. What late night shows do you watch, and why do you think it'd be a good addition?
Which is important because you should also be knowledgeable about what you are applying for. If you say you want to be a writer, and I ask you what, and you say you want to write half-hour comedies, and you don't have a single half-hour comedy that came out in the last 365 days that you've watched, or if I ask you, what are you currently watching, and all you are watching are hour-long dramas, that's a problem, right? So you want to make sure that you're knowledgeable. I love TV. So if you ask me, what am I watching as a general thing, you're going to get a bunch of different answers. But if I'm interviewing for a job on a half-hour show, I'm going to speak about the half-hour shows that I'm watching. And I'm going to have examples from, as far back as The Cosby Show, but I'm also going to have current examples and be able to talk about a show as current as Abbott Elementary. You need to be knowledgeable and educated on the industry. If you say that you're a writer, a television writer, and you don't watch TV, that's a red flag to anybody, whether it's, the executives, up at the top of these companies, or if it's me as somebody who's looking to network with other creators. If you tell me you want to write for television or direct for television and you don't watch television, I'm not going to ask you to direct my web series. You know what I mean? So it's always wanting to be knowledgeable and aware. And it doesn't mean that you have to know everything. Caleb and I often are talking about shows where it's Caleb's seen it and I haven't, or I've seen it and Caleb hasn't. Doesn't mean that you watch everything, but you're at least aware of what's on television. You're at least trying to kind of, watch a little bit of everything. If, you're going in for a meeting with somebody who writes on a specific show, go watch that show. Even if you don't watch the whole thing, if it's 3 seasons long, but if you can watch at least a season and a half, at least have something to be able to talk about when you're meeting people.
Yes. It only starts with one step in the direction. And if you keep that part like away from your life, waiting for the perfect moment to enter your life, it's just not going to happen. Be realistic with yourself.
So always be watching, always be reading.
After they ask the essay questions, here's in this fellowship, they will ask you for creative materials. They're going to ask for a monologue in the form of like a specific late night host. They're going to ask for jokes that would be on one of the shows that they have. And the point here is to show that you can adapt to the room, because a lot of TV writers, or a lot of writers in general, if they want to join TV, for instance, right? They're like, oh yeah, I want to be a TV writer, but they want to write what they want to write. And like, it's a job at the end of the day, you know, like until you do have that showrunner or creator position, you're not going to be able to write exclusively what you want. You're going to be a part of a room. So this is where they ask you to showcase that skill. And after that, they, you know, ask you to sign some legal documents. So then they're not held accountable and you understand your place. And bada bing, bada boom, submit, and you are off.
And I mean, that was a deep dive into that specific fellowship. Most of them are similar. So you're going to answer some of their questions and you're going to submit your material, whether it's a half-hour script, an hour-long script, some monologues and some jokes, whatever they're asking you for material-wise, you will submit that in addition to answering essay questions. I have yet to find a fellowship where you will not have to answer essay questions. So if that upsets you, I'm sorry, but you will have to learn how to talk about yourself. I think a lot of the essay questions are really just learning how to present yourself in a number of different mediums. I know that for me, you get me into a room to interview, I win a room easily on an interview. Writing for me and writing about my experiences and telling that in a compelling narrative can be a little bit difficult, but it is a skill that, as long as you, like Caleb said, until you become a showrunner, you are always pitching yourself, pitching your skills, and pitching content until you become a showrunner where you're really just pitching your content. But it is a very, I would say the fellowship process, from which you guys can hear, very extensive. And it is exhausting. I know we kind of talked about me and my procrastination, but Caleb, how's your process? How's it going for you?
Oh, my process is definitely a mixed bag, to say the least. Mm-hmm. In terms of writing, with the way I write, even though we will have an episode more on our creative process, essentially there's a lot of outlining before and perfecting in the outline before I actually translate it to paper. So in terms of procrastination, I too do productive procrastinating, both in the style that Miss Gaelyn admitted, in terms of watching things that will help you be stronger in what you're trying to do, but also in like trying to create this perfect outline. That way I could do the minimum amount of editing when I actually do start typing out those pages. That being said, there is also a lot of me waiting for like the juju to enter my body, so then I could be in the mood to write this perfect comedic Yes, I see the face.
I mean, because at this point, we're at the point in the creative process where it's like, or we're at the point in our creative journeys where, at least for me, I've realized that motivation is fleeting, discipline is consistent. So like there are days when I was writing the short film, when I had COVID, I literally could not write. Like that was like a moment of like, I am too tired. I am too sick. My brain is not functioning enough to write anything. Right. But then when I came out of it, there were days when I was going back to work and I was tired. But like, for me, it's like tired can beat you and you can be tired. So for me, it's like, there are days when I do not feel like writing. I come home, I'm like, I do not feel like sitting down at my computer and writing these pages and figuring out the story or writing this essay or whatever. But I'm like, but discipline kicks in, and discipline reminds me of like, you can either watch TV or you can create and be on TV, but you can't do both. at the same time, right? Like, it's not like I can't sit up here and go, well, since I don't feel like it, I won't. And like, it's not easy. Trust me, y'all. Like, discipline is not easy. There are days when motivation beats discipline for me. And then there are times when discipline really kicks in. But it's like, for me, I'm just like, I'm trying to practice as much discipline as possible, because I also know, like, my birthday is next weekend. And I know that for me, I am at a point in my life where I want more from my career and I want to make stronger strides forward. So for me, like, I'm just trying to practice discipline as much as possible, because I know that's going to get me to where I want to be. Because, child, if I work both of my jobs in the same day, I work somewhere between 12 and 14 of 24 hours. So like, feeling like doing anything ain't never gonna happen. But it's hard. I'd be sad. Caleb knows I have an addiction to the energy drink Bang. Sponsor us, please. Sponsor us, please. But I have an addiction to Bangs, because it's like, you got to get it done. These deadlines do not care. One thing we're certain about these deadlines, unlike being in college, they don't care that you had COVID. They don't care that your grandmama died. They don't care that your house burned down. Them things are going to shut off. Did you submit your material? Yes or no? That's all it's going to be.
Ooh. This reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that I've read recently. And when I say quote, I say tweet. But what is a tweet if not a quote, which makes it a quote that somebody tweeted? They tweeted on their Twitter account. Anyways, the quote said, you ready for this? God didn't rest on the seventh day because he was tired. He rested because the job was complete.
Because it was complete.
Finish the job, people. Finish the job.
It's like Jesus on the cross. He said, I am finished.
Then he peaced out.
Finished.
Don't let the tired get you.
Don't let us, like, I got that from Swagger. Tired can beat you, and you can be tired. Well, that is a little bit about our process into getting ready for these fellowships and a little bit of a deep dive. So hopefully we answered some questions for you about the process. As always, if you guys have questions about what we said, you can, put it in the little comment section of, wherever you're listening to this podcast. I will open the questions and answers on Spotify, so you can always hit us up on there. Also, if you have not done so already, we have created a specific page for the podcast, as well as our production company. So everything is going to be housed there. So when it's time to listen to your podcast, you want to know more about it, go to this page. As Caleb and I release our web series and our other digital content, it'll all live there. So if you want to go find us and see the content, you can follow us at No Sleep X Prod. At No Sleep X Prod. But go follow us there. You can hit up our comments there to ask us more questions about fellowships and other things. And if you have any other questions, like, hit us up and we'll either answer them for you, try to find an answer for you, or send you to somebody who's going to know better than us. I feel like that's accurate.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right, everybody. Well, this has been another episode of No Sleep Till Hollywood. It's your girl, Gaelyn Smith. You can follow me at GSmitty with 2 T's and 4 Y's on anything with an @ symbol.
And it is Caleb McDonald. And you can follow me at Caleb Subtitles on anything with an @ symbol. If not, I don't want to be found on that specific platform.
Literally. That's just what it is. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Super grateful, super thankful for you guys for listening. And now for watching, because we got video. But yeah, you can see our faces now. But thank you guys so much. And we will catch y'all on another episode of No Sleep Till Hollywood. Good night. And good morning.
And good afternoon.